Live stream.
I left.
You what?
I left.
Okay.
Back at the classes.
Yeah, okay. That's exciting though. Yeah. So you're out completely then?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I gave them 3 months notice.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so you still have, is that 3 months done?
It's done.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. I've been there 5 years,
That's a very long time.
especially as COVID and all of that. drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, it's hard to believe that it's been 5 years already, but yeah.
Yeah.
Is she
yeah.
looking in her phone? Cause I promoted her, but
That is traumatizing.
Trying to sign in with audio.
Well, that's exciting. I'll see you at Glass Fest for sure.
You will. You will. Yes. Yes.
Is there any chance I can turn some of my sculptures into glass pieces?
Well, it's funny that you should ask. There is a process by which you have applied to that.
Oh, wow.
Yes. You should do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, can we get started? So she's trying to sign in with her iPhone. Should I ask her to try again?
yeah, I mean, I tried promoting her panelists and it said they declined, so.
So Perico, these are public meetings, so they're streamed.
Okay.
And so we're just waiting
So no cursing. Okay.
Right.
for 2 people. Um,
Gotta let it out.
so we have kind of a smaller group today. But can I get started? But we'll get started because so welcome everybody. Emily's not here today. So I think the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes, make a motion to approve the minutes from May, from April, from May 6th.
I motion that we approve the minutes from April to May.
No, it's May 6th. That was from May 6th. From May 6th.
From this.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Then we're just gonna move on. We have a very special guest, very, very special guest, Parika the artist. And I want to let you know, Parika, that this meeting's really devoted to a dialogue with you. So we want to get to know you. We want to hear everything about how you got started,
Okay.
where you are now with your art, where you're showing. And we're very interested as a City Arts Commission, your interactions with I know the City of Seattle's commissioned you, like what other cities have commissioned you and what's worked well and what hasn't. And
Okay.
what you'd love, like if we were to have you, what would you love in a perfect world to see?
Yeah. Well, thankfully I organize it in a way where it explains everything that you just said, where I,
Great.
kind of start from.
Is it 3
the
hours?
beginning.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No, you're too young.
Fortunately, I've had enough things happen to me to where I could fill 3
Would you
hours.
prefer this one or would you prefer the other one?
Whichever one. I think you could put like,
Slideshow.
yeah, slideshow.
Okay, let me share it first. See those familiar pieces?
And while she does that, just as an arts commission where we are, what we're really focusing on right now is signal box wraps. So we've done over 22
Nice.
and we'll do 10 more this year.
Mm.
And that's been a really affordable way to get local artists out,
Yeah.
and
I mean, that's great. I mean, that's how I started, with stuff like that,
is it?
the raps and
Mhm.
little things like that. I think it's a great way for artists who are especially trying to, get their foot in the door somewhere
Mhm.
to like.
Adriana, can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So I think you just do the arrows and it'll Go to the next slide.
Okay, cool. So hi, everyone. My name is Gerardo Peña, but most people nowadays know me as Perico the artist, because of social media. So this picture here is me and my family when we were still in Mexico. I am a Mexican immigrant. I came across the border around the time when I was 5 years old. I was undocumented for the majority of my childhood. I am currently a DACA recipient, which means it's basically limbo for immigrants. You don't get any of the privileges as a resident or but at least you don't get deported. So so that's that. I when it came to my art, it was something I guess I was naturally good at, but I didn't really take seriously most of my life. In fact, I didn't want to be an artist. Be surprised. Kind of like ended up here. I think I gave in to the art, I because everybody growing up told me that there was no money in the arts, and I grew up poor. So why would I want to continue being poor, right? That's so my goal was always getting into business and management and sales, and that was always my forte, I felt. So after high school, I did not go to college. I barely graduated high school because I had a couple rough years where I hung around the wrong crowd, gang members and whatnot. I was never personally a gang member, but I was what you call a wannabe.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living in Federal Way.
Okay.
It was during, it was a really popular time for that whole, gang era. I think you don't see it as frequently in the state anymore, but when I was in high school, it was very common. And then I went and started doing sales for my friend's company, who was we started a cleaning company. We kept getting let go of jobs because we weren't documented, and they would find out and they would like let us go. And things kept getting more complicated. This is before Obama approved the DACA. They referred to it as a DREAM Act at first, but it's not an act. So now it's like just Deferred Action Care Act, which I don't understand. Like I said, it's like limbo for immigrants. I think there was a lot of protesting going on, and it was their solution to, hey, like, we'll give these people an opportunity, quote unquote, but they never had an actual pathway for us and to get into even residency or citizenship, not even close to citizenship actually. And so this was before then. So my friend thought that, he found a loophole where like, well, they don't check, your social security if you start your own business. So that's what he did. And he brought me on because he was like, you like to talk a lot. So why don't you do the sales and marketing for me? And that's what I did. And then I did operations with him, and I did that for 6 years. And when I told you that I was miserable, I was completely miserable. It was probably one of the worst times of my life because I was lost. I felt like I was a bright kid, and I was a creative child. And then I ended up somewhere where I felt like I was stuck, and I struggled with depression and suicidal ideation for a while. And I think there was a moment where I almost did go through with it. And then when I decided not to, I realized that I had to figure out a way for me to find purpose in my life. And it took me a while, but I think after I got in a car accident, I started having chronic back pain, and it did not allow me to do my job as well as I could before. And at that point, I was selling art on the side just to, enough for me to afford vacations, basically. And I realized that I clearly had a talent for it, So, and I understood marketing, so I used what I knew in my skill set, and I started promoting my work and started expanding into that. And little did I know how. Oh, it canceled. Oh, where?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
So, when you say you started marketing it, was that all social media?
No, this is before how popular social media got. Actually, that will come up later because that social media did change my life, but it took a while. Oh, it's not. Sorry, maybe I read the space.
You just gotta click on.
Oh, there you go. So that leads to finally when I decided to quit my job and follow my dreams and pursuing my dreams to become a full-time artist. And the thing I didn't mention is that I was obsessed with drawing and making art. I've always been a very creative child, you know, and like I said, I just didn't really see a pathway for a life with it because even in high school, my teacher said I was incredibly talented, but she said that uh, there isn't really any money in the arts. There's a lot of elitism in there, and she kind of like, you know, made me feel like I didn't really have a way in. Uh, Now I understand is because my teacher couldn't do it herself. So she, you know, without, like I said, I don't think that they did it in a malice way, right? I feel like they were trying to just look out for me in their own way, telling me that maybe you should get a career and in something and do art as a hobby because they didn't want me to end up where they ended up, you know? So I started with a Tacoma cohort, thanks to the Arts Commission of Tacoma. They started a couple of programs, and you had to be living in Tacoma. So after I quit my job, I moved to Tacoma, and that opportunity came up. So it was like just
What was
a
that
dash of luck.
opportunity?
You apply, but you have to be a resident in Tacoma, and uh, if you get accepted, it teaches basically artists to go from 2D work into getting into the public art world. And so I did that, and I started getting projects like the one on the right where we built a giant 18-foot tall piñata for a festival, and amongst other things, like I would do signs, and I would get hired as a community engagement specialist, is what they called it, you know, since they felt like artists are really good at connecting the community. And after that, whoops. Where do I?
Oh, just the arrows.
Oh, there you go. So this is basically a sample of what my work used to look like during that time. The one all the way on the right was actually purchased by the city of Tacoma, and it's somewhere. I have no idea where it is. But you know, at that time, you know, you'll see the progression of how my style completely started changing. But this is before I understood color theory. But I was clearly I was very tenacious with my technique. I really wanted to, like, for example, I painted that one all the way on the left because I struggled painting hands. So I made myself paint at least 15 of them to get it out of my system. And that's what I did. And every time I struggled with something that's I would like, if I didn't know how to paint eyes, and I would paint like a ton of them until I got it right. And then I started getting other things like this is, as you can see, the color palette started changing. I started going more colorful. And that was thanks to the public art because I realized that people want color, you know? And that's what I learned when I was doing surveys and community engagement. And a lot of people want to color in the cities. And I realized people want color in general, you know, in their lives. So I started experimenting with different color theories. And you see, like now I started coming with the oranges, the blues, the pinks, which you will kind of see in my work still to this
Are
day.
these all in Tacoma?
The two on the right are Tacoma, the one all the way on the left is in Federal Way.
Was this during your program that you were a part of for the city of Tacoma or after?
No, that came after. These opportunities started coming up with Spaceworks as well in Tacoma. And the other one is with the Arts Commission and Federal Way, but I think they found me because of social media. So that was when I mean, I didn't have a large following in social media, but it was big enough for me to get those kinds of opportunities, thankfully. So, and this leads to a year that we all will remember, in 2020. And I started with this mural because it was the first mural that I basically made. And it was kind of one that I finished in December of 2019, but they installed it early 2020. And this mural is incredibly important to my career, not because of what it is here as you see it, but later what happens to it.
And who commissioned that
That was Spaceworks
in Tacoma?
in Tacoma, yeah. which, you know, like I said, Arts Commissions of Tacoma is, I love all the people that work there, and Spaceworks. They're all very good to me, and I feel like, you know, they gave an opportunity to up and coming artists. You know, they paid more than most cities. You know, I think even more than Seattle, to do like little things like the wraps and the electrical boxes. But you know, obviously in Seattle they have bigger budgets for the bigger things. Um, so this is kind of what I started my style started gravitating towards. And so 2020 was a really difficult year for me, as is for was for many. I mean, I'm not a citizen or anything. I can't get unemployment. So I basically went through all my money. And I just kind of kept the philosophy. I saw this show based on Picasso where he said that when he stopped painting, terrible things would happen, and he felt cursed to never stop painting. So he would continue painting, hoping that good things would happen. And he realized that as long as he kept painting, good things would happen. And for some reason, I felt like I heard that at the right time. And no matter what happened that year, I kept painting, hoping good things would happen. I kept promoting myself. I kept trying to figure out new ways. I started studying algorithms and social media online. And finally, when I posted this painting all the way on the left, was the first painting that ever went viral. It went viral on Facebook, out of all places. And unfortunately, people cropped my watermark, so it became famous without me. Thankfully enough, I got enough attention where I got 1,000 new followers on Instagram, so I got commission work from it, from people wanting me to paint their family members and whatnot. So it got me through 2020, thankfully. But that's when I started, appearing on television. I got interviewed by Telemundo, and, I was in Univision and all these other things. But I realized that a lot of times they were asking me very political questions because, of course, the painting on the left has very, but for me, it wasn't a political issue, it was a humanitarian problem, right? But I just felt like they were boxing me in and describing me as a political artist, which I didn't appreciate because I felt like that's all I was ever going to be. And I want to just be an artist in general. So I had like a really difficult time with, I don't like, imagine like you're finally getting attention for your work and you want to pivot, which is like, I ended up doing something that I wouldn't advise for anyone, but it worked out for me. So,
I'm
so
just gonna text the two members again, so I
Go
don't
ahead.
want to be rude, but you can keep
no,
going.
no, I'm not. So this is a mural I did for, also, I think, commissioned by the Arts Commission in Tacoma. And they wanted, this is one of, I did several projects during this time period that they wanted something that was friendly for, that followed policies that, the rules that, the COVID had, where you can't interact with people a certain way. So I thought of building this mural that had a backdrop where people could take pictures with it,
So cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know how popular it was going to get. People love this mural a lot, and it did get defaced at some point. And within 24 hours, we got like $6,000 to fix it. So it was just, it showed the love that the community had.
Remind me, where was that?
This was in McKinley and Tacoma. It's in the
Okay.
east side.
Okay.
And it's even a thing on the website when people like go where
You got the eyes down, that's for sure.
So that's that. And so this is where basically I started to pivot my entire career. This is the mural I showed earlier, and it got defaced. And during that time, it was during the riots, and a lot of murals were defaced in Tacoma by neo-Nazis and whatnot. But mine wasn't. Mine turned out, we thought it was, but they caught the person who did it. It turned out it was someone having a manic episode, and they just threw yellow paint on it, and somehow it was very fitting. I was not upset that they faced it. I was upset on their technique. I was like, you could have done, I don't know why, but it did inspire me. And I remember just having like a vision of what my art could become. And I went back to my studio and started scribbling on my notebook, all these like I realized that my crutch was always faces, because people would hire me to do portraits and whatnot. And I realized my art would not get better until like I took that crutch away from myself. So I started scribbling on faces, and this is when I started experimenting. I did a couple, oops. I went,
So Nikki, Daryl,
okay, there you go.
sorry, Daryl and Sylvia are on.
Escape this real quick.
They both said they're in.
I don't know what that means.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Parika's giving his presentation.
Amazing.
Okay,
Wait, oh,
okay,
why don't I hide this?
no problem.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, thank you. So yeah, this got the face and then inspired my, I made a couple of small paintings, really small ones. And they were these ones, and they were inspired by the defacement of my
Oh.
mural, and in which, if some of you know my work, it looks more like the work I do now. I remember that it didn't, not everybody got it. You know, at that point, I didn't have that many followers. I had like what, 1,500 or something. But I remember that these were not received as good as I wanted them to get received. But I remember that the people who received them the best are people who I trusted with their artistic palette, you know, people who I admired, other artists that I really looked up to. They thought that I was onto something, and funny enough, these sold like immediately. So I'm like, I think once I fine tune this new style, I think I have something, you know, going. I think these may had been a little too creepy maybe for some people, but I thought if I can, you know, make it like elegant and including a little bit of the eeriness and chaos still in my style, I feel like I could tap into something.
And what was your ultimate message with this?
Oh, I was inspired by the chaotic freedom. I felt like the work that I was doing wasn't necessarily 100% me. It was too technical. As you can tell, I'm kind of a mess. So I feel like my mind doesn't work that way. I feel my mind is more scattered. And I feel like my work didn't really represent me 100%. I think I'm a more colorful, more chaotic kind of person. And it wasn't really represented, and the most importantly, it wasn't 100% political anymore. You know, it was all speaking on other things other than politics, you know. So this is the first piece, the large one, the first original large piece that I made based on my new style. And it was like, I remember people were just, I love the reaction I got to it. It really made me feel confident that I was doing something right, you know, because you know, from other artists, that the thing that I heard was like, this is different, you know, this is you, and this is something that you don't see everyone doing. So, and then I started experimenting and painting on sculptures.
yeah.
I did make my own sculptures from scratch, but I forgot to include them. I kind of was running out of time. But I just remember this because during this period in 2021 is where my life completely started changing, because I started gaining a lot of traction online. Turns out that TikTok was where I needed to be at that point in my life, because as soon as I started posting there, I was getting more views on it and more attention than I've ever gotten in my entire career, you know? So then, you know, I got other projects, bigger murals, and this was for the forgot the the woman's.
YWCA.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm a little dyslexic probably. So yeah, that was for them, and it was for Dorothy Height Apartments, and this is in downtown Tacoma. And then this is where I started going viral a lot online. So this is where I mean that my life changed, because I started creating an income that was more consistent, which it comes from prints. I realized that real money in the art, at least is an independent artist like myself, the real income comes from prints, not from selling the originals. Because from, you know, I'll sell an original for like what, 5,000, 3,000, but prints can easily make me 10 times that, you know.
How
or
do you
more.
know how to price them?
I
I have some of your prints from the beginning.
really?
From Central Latino, remember at the Mercado?
Oh my God, that was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. See, I forgot that I was actually selling prints
Uh-huh.
before this, but this is where I started becoming more professional, like buying better packaging and taking it more seriously, obviously. And I used to use stickers, but people really liked it when I scribbled on the
Oh, I love
package.
that,
People
yeah.
started collecting the packages, so I thought it was sweet. And then I started getting attention from like celebrities, for example, this Cheech and Chong, they put a Proud of You. Yeah, that was a comment I saved because Cheech, I don't know if you guys know Cheech Marin, but he's a huge art collector and he has a Cheech museum, you know. So my goal my goal at that point was to meet him at some point, to thank him for it, because during this time, it was one of the most difficult times of my adult life. I was getting over a breakup, I was moving, I was having 2 cancer scares, I was just a lot going on in my personal life, and everybody thought I was incredibly happy because my following was growing. I think I got like 100,000 followers in a span of 2 weeks or something, yeah. And I currently have over 200,000, 210,000 online in total, I think. But yeah, and before the pandemic was like 700 followers, I think I had. So, I started like really building my own community, without the connections, without anybody. And then people start reaching out. I got as you see the painting on the left, that one was really popular online at the time too. And it was for a health point. It was for an auction they had. And one on the right was for an ad I did for Pandora, the app. I don't know if you guys remember Pandora, but it was like a radio app. It kind of died out. But this was like the last year where they were like trying to make it work still. And I was one of the artists they hired to help promote the app. And then in 2022, I started and I was continuing. Obviously, now you can totally see that the color scheme is finally fulfilled when it's colorful and it's vibrant. And the one on the right was for a Mexican restaurant that was quite popular in Federal Way for their ceviche. And they come from Nayarit, which is where the Huichol people are from, and they wanted something that represented their culture. And then the one on the left was something that was approved, I believe, by the Arts Commission of Tacoma as well. And they just gave me funding to do it wherever. And where I had my art studio was the owners of the studio where they were giving me an incredibly affordable rate. I don't know what I would have done during COVID if they didn't allow me to get the space for super cheap. I gave them that as a gift, that mural with the baby in the app. And then later on, 2022 is when I think out of all the paintings I've made, the one on the left is the one that probably changed my life the most. That one on the left has gone viral like 4 different times on separate occasions, probably over 6 million views kind of thing. And then the difference why I say that this one changed my life more than the one little girl with the butterfly is because this one is the one that for some reason I think, I don't know, maybe the art spoke differently, or maybe my art looked more refined, but that's when I started getting reached out by galleries, by museums. So that's what I mean.
Can you just pause and tell us about all the symbolism?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I just need that.
Yeah, so the one on the left is called Ghosts from the Past, and it's about generational trauma. I feel like a lot of people connected with it. I even made a video. A lot of my videos that go viral is because I do spoken word, or I tell a story that goes with the painting. And for me, I told basically when I struggled with suicidal ideation, my issues with generational trauma, my coming from alcoholism, my family, from people who are mentally ill, people who where did crime and more things I'd rather not mention, but yeah, I have a dark past and part of my family, and I feel like part of it carried on to me, and so I eventually like painting really, I felt like brought me peace in a way, like it changed my entire life, and I felt during this period of my career now, I really fell in love with art all over again, like I was a child, I feel like I can't now, even now, I can't stop making work. I don't just do it anymore to survive. I really do it because I love it, because I need it, like literally it's what kept me alive during some of the hardest, most difficult parts of my adult life. So that one obviously was super popular. The one on the right is it's about what do you call it, when identity what is identity crisis?
Yeah,
identity crisis. It's called To Be or Not to Be. And I always felt like I was here nor there. Go ahead.
Okay, there's so much in these. And then, and I can wait till the end, but like, I was wondering about the clock where the heart is. So is that about the generations? Like you can't go you can't unwind the past.
Well, I mean, if you pay attention, also it's like I think it's 5 minutes to midnight or something, kind of like every.
Okay.
But I did mention it. I did paint the clock. Usually don't like to over explain my paintings, but
Okay.
but I
okay.
will now. I mean, I
Okay.
will now because it's
Well, I don't
been a
know if
while.
something like
Yeah.
it just comes automatically or you got a thought and then you have to come up with a symbol.
Sometimes it is something that I dream. Sometimes I don't know, like I sketch a lot of things and then things come to me in a dream. I know it sounds kind of funny, so
No,
but
not at all.
they really do. And this was an image I had that came to me in a dream for like years before I actually felt like I had the right technique and the right color palette to paint it. But a lot of it for me, what the clock represents, I I believe even to myself, I had to like try understand where it comes from. But I think in the symbolism here is that as soon as we're born, we have a clock. Like we have like a running time. We don't know how long it is, but it's always on the edge because we could die at any moment, and that's like because nothing in life is guaranteed, and especially our time here. So I feel like as soon as you're born, like if you have these generational traumas, right, like you have this small window to try and change things, and I feel like sometimes it takes many generations sometimes to fully heal from something like like especially if you look into the African American community, right, with slavery, like it's a lot of going into the civil rights thing. And in Mexico the same thing. We were peasants, and my great grandparents are indigenous and some of them are not. I believe one of them, my great grandparents, is Spanish full. But a lot of things come from colonization and poverty, and there's a reason why people from a certain demographic drink and do a lot of drugs. There's a lot of history there with the government. So I feel like it's like you have this small window and you better make it count kind of thing, but nobody really prepares you for it. And that's why I feel like even the cord is still not cut. It's still like attached to you, to your mother. It's like this generational thing that's passed on. And like I said, it's really at least that's how I felt. For me, it's up to me to make a change and not always blame. For example, in my situation, I at some point I was like, I can't always blame my father for my things that happen to me. I have to like take control of my own life. And obviously the ghosts in the past can be like people or curses or even issues like drug addiction and things like that, or abuse. So I didn't want him to have a face. I wanted it to be more like a symbolic thing.
Thank you for explaining.
problem.
That was beautiful. I'm glad I asked.
And then there's these ones, and the one on the left is called I Am Nobody, and the one on the right is called La Muerte También Llora, which is translated to Death Also Cries. You remember that?
I remember
Yeah.
this, yeah.
And so the one I Am Nobody was actually all of these pieces were pretty popular. I mean, that's why I put these as highlights. The I Am Nobody obviously has to do with depression and imposter syndrome and heartbreak, things that I was dealing with this specific point in my life. I was trying to get over a lot of my basically getting over myself, right? And a lot of things with me, when I paint something, sometimes I meditate on it and I put it on the piece and I tell myself that when this piece is finished, I will feel better, and that's exactly what happened. And then Death Also Cries, I always thought that we have this negative, like especially in the United States, it's like this taboo of our relationship with death. But I felt like for at least from in Mexico, right, it's this transition into the last phase of your life, which is the end of your life, and then to the afterlife. And I feel like, at least in my perspective, death takes all our pain. Like let's say you're you're dying from cancer, when death relieves you from that. So I always felt that if death is a real entity somewhere and somehow, if it's relieving us of this pain, does death also feel pain since it's the one that's taking on this burden? So that's why I titled it Death Also Cries. Like as in the death also mourns our pain, and it's not this scary entity that a lot, modern times tries to make it seem, but more like of a goddess. Yeah. And so here's a mural I did with that's right next to the Museum of Modern Pop Art and Seattle Center. And that was, I think, Seattle Center will reach out to me to do this specific one.
Oh,
But
okay.
I was, I think, on the roster, on the Seattle and Washington roster. And that's how they found me. And this is when I started working with Seattle. Like this was like the beginning of my
And the
relationship.
red on the mouth.
Oh, a lot of things. Good question. A lot of people ask me about this. A lot of the dots and everything are just tribal indigenous things. They come from completely different tribes and all throughout North and South America. It's like I like to honor the mestizo part of at least my people Mexicans, because we come from all over the place, and the mestizo is like this mixture of different cultures, and especially during colonization, some of these tribes kind of like blended together. And where I'm from Querétaro, and in Querétaro, it's considered like La Cuna, which is where the crib, I guess, is where at least the story that I've heard and that have been told to me by other indigenous elders, that indigenous tribes came together there to basically understand that they were going to lose against the Spanish, but they came together to promise each other that they would keep each other's traditions and cultures alive one way or another. And why I represent a lot of dead imagery in my work is because I always found it. I think a lot of people think I'm like a religious person, but I'm totally the opposite. But I think I find religion and fascinating when it comes to historical context. Like, for example, I always thought that Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, was something that had to do with Catholicism in Mexico, but it was actually originally an Aztec celebration during harvest, and so they started using Catholic imagery during the celebration, so they wouldn't be persecuted. Because if they celebrated their own things, the people would get murdered. They would take away their children. They would chop off their hands. They were like severely punished. So they started mixing Catholicism in their own things to say like basically like, no, we're worshiping your God, but and in a way to still keep their culture alive. It's just, I think it's for me that shows the power and the will to survive and carry your traditions and your culture. I think that's pretty brave of all those generations that carried it on. So that's why I like to combine indigenous and the Day of the Dead and all these things, and Renaissance-esque imagery with Catholicism.
So
Uh,
the red's just a tribal.
is it just a travel? Yeah. And this is during that time I started getting flown. Like I was flown out to Cincinnati to basically exhibit some of my work for Indigenous Heritage Month, since they really, I mean, for some reason that specific painting was really big in Cincinnati. Like for some like the algorithm is it does its own thing. But when I got there, a lot of people knew about my work, and Cincinnati specifically was very, very odd. But I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool. Yeah. So, and then on the right is, you probably, some of you will recognize it, Lake Gold Gardens. That's where I decided to do my first solo exhibition. I felt like
When
that was
was
a
And
on
what
Dece-
year?
2022 in
2022.
December. Yeah, my goal was to have my first.
We did the solstice.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. My goal was to have my first solo exhibition before I turned 31, I believe. And I did this 5 days before my birthday. And then now we entered 2023, 2024, which I call it more my established era now, where even when I'm not trying to promote myself, because I get burnt out, like thankfully I feel like people reach out to me. I don't have to do like the grueling work of constantly marketing myself. Uh, so in this new era, I feel like, for example, is the Seattle Arts Commission that I worked with, and that was in Ballard. And the other one was actually, it was somewhere I don't remember. It was in Nebraska no, not really. It was some state, not here. I totally forgot. I'm sorry. But it was in a different state. They reached out to me to design a billboard, and So that's what I did. It was for Immigrant Heritage Month. There's a month for everything now, you know. So and obviously I wanted the painting represents obviously the migration. I mean, usually I use monarch butterflies to represent migration and immigration, since the monarch butterflies is what flutter throughout the North Americas. And this is a mural I did for a restaurant in Kent. I just put this to also to remind that a lot of my work comes from my own community supporting, you know, and what I do for them is I try to promote their places. For example, this video for that specific gentleman, he's a famous country singer in Mexico. That one got like almost 2 million views, so that helped out the restaurant. So
And is that on TikTok that you did the video or Instagram
on
or
both.
everything?
For some reason, TikTok doesn't care about me anymore, so I don't get views on TikTok anymore. I don't know why, but that's just the algorithm. It's just kind of everybody goes through that apparently. But now I'm growing on Instagram, so you know, it is what it is. You know,
But if we want to find those videos, they'd be on Instagram.
they're everywhere now, yeah. But you can find them on Instagram. And so this is for a show. Oh yeah, I forgot this year was really rough on me. That's why I said that like I don't have to market myself as much because I finally went through artist block. That was the first year I ever experienced it. It was awful. I couldn't make I just even if I had ideas I couldn't put myself
When was this?
on 2023.
Okay.
So last year. And they had a big show coming to Tacoma Art Museum, and I'll like the next slide will explain why it was important to me. But it really like basically was not what knocked me out of my artistic block because I'm like I have to like you know like I've been working for this. I have to if I don't step up now, just quit. You know, that's like kind of mindset I had, like just give up, you know. So I created these two pieces. One is called Time, and it's about the difficulty of letting go, which is what I was experiencing during that time in my life as well. I was letting go of a lot of things. Uh, and the one on the right is another form of identity crisis, but this is more of uh, I think I tackled more here identity crisis when it comes to being born in a different country and trying to establish yourself here. So it's called in Spanish "Ni de aquí ni de allá," which is like a saying that a lot of Mexicans use when they're not here nor from there, as in like they don't feel like they fit in this country and or in Mexico. And it usually happens with Mexican Americans, or in my case, people who have been here most of their lives. So that was that. And the reason why it was just so important to me is because I don't know if you remember earlier on, someone I actually put the comment of a specific person um, that commented on online. You know, so we were the show was with Cheech Marin.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
so full circle. Yeah. So I got to meet him, and I told him that story. You know, of that of you know that his comment really like lit a fire on my ass and got me. And then he's like, okay, and what he told me was, you know, he told me, okay, I'll send you my address. I'm like, your address? Yeah, so you can like, so I can send him a check for the work he got me, basically. You know, so you know, I'm very great sense of humor. Okay, I felt terrible because I was waiting for this for so long, but I didn't have any paintings. And I made those in 4 days. Those two paintings in 4 days.
There you go.
Yeah.
And they're spectacular.
But I didn't sleep. Like I think I slept 2 hours and 3 days. So it was awful because I don't remember his speech. Like I was like, I remember I was with my partner. I was like telling her to like pinch me because I was sleep. I was like dreaming while being awake. I don't know if you ever being that sleep deprived, but I remember his head was turning into like a cat and like and I couldn't and I snore really loud, so I couldn't fall asleep because it'd be super embarrassing. Can you? And I was like in one of the front rows. So can you imagine falling asleep and like snoring in front of Cheech Marin after all you know, it was rough. So my goal was to stay awake, but unfortunately I don't remember most of his speech. I literally remember like 5 minutes of an hour. But that was that. And then this year I started doing stuff like this for union for workers' rights, and this one took a long time. But you know, so this was community members that basically volunteer. I'm obviously a huge supporter of workers' rights, coming from I've also been exploited. Uh, Probably, so I just try to support it in my own way. And this is the one of my most recent mural. And it's the coffee shop called The Station. They're really popular in Seattle, and they opened a new location in Columbia City. And the wife is from African descent, and the husband is from Mexican descent. So they wanted tribal, like something that was tribal and represented both of them, their backgrounds. And at the time I didn't know, but turns out that there's African monarchs as well. So I thought it was perfect. It was like, a match made in heaven, I said. And most of the coffee belt, because they're a coffee shop, the main coffee belt goes right through South America, Mexico, and in Africa. So like, you can only get coffee plants from specific places. So I told them this is like perfect, the tribalism, the butterflies, the coffee plants, it was just perfect. So that's why I did a Rorschach version, as in, even though they come from different backgrounds, they are still complete, they're the same by their vision. And then this is my three latest pieces that I've done so far this year. And the last one, the one on the left is called Caught in the Holy War. It's about holy wars and genocide. And then the one in the middle is called Trauma Dump. It's about, I've been doing a lot of that lately. I feel like, now that I feel comfortable, I think talking about certain things about my life, I feel like it was just fitting. Suffered the loss of my father like a month ago. So I just felt like that was kind of what came after that. And then the one all the way on the right is just a portrait of one of my favorite singers, Vicente Fernandez. And I just wanted to paint it because I wanted a break from painting all these dark things and wanted to paint something.
How were these received?
I mean, well, now I'm more, I think I'm in a place now where if I release something.
Yeah. You're 200,000 followers.
Well, not
Like,
anymore. No. Not actually, like I said, you'll be surprised. Like, I have 182,000 followers on TikTok, which is where I used to get millions of views all the time. And now I'll be lucky if I get 5,000 views. That's how the algorithm is, because it's an open
Yeah.
platform. But
Oh, yeah.
right now, like I've been expanding my following on Instagram. So now I have 32,000 followers on Instagram. But funny enough, Instagram seems to be getting me more work than TikTok, because Instagram is more local. It's like a network. I mean, more people know you, so they're more connected with you. So thankfully, even though I have a smaller following on Instagram, I'm able to get more work when it comes to murals. So that's kind of like what I've been doing a lot lately. And also, I mean, we're currently in a recession, so I'm not like, I could tell by the sales and my friends. I think most people can tell. If you're a business owner, you can tell by, it's just out there. People don't have money right now. So I've been focusing on murals because, that's what brings in, financial stability for me. Which it's fine, because sometimes when I do a lot of just like in a studio, I don't go out. So I isolate myself too much. And then let's see. Oh, and I'm currently working something with a Seattle Center again, and then for downtown Seattle as well. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Who are the best people you've commissioned with, and who are the most difficult, and why?
It's public too.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No,
So
I can-
without
I-
making it, what
Yeah.
makes it, obviously we're,
I have a good answer for that. Both of them are both my community, the Mexican business owners. They've been the best and the most difficult, because they don't understand. Sometimes I think art is undervalued in specific places, and in Mexico, everybody's an artist in Mexico. So, and art is cheap in Mexico. So I felt like in some cases it was very difficult for them to understand that this is an investment. This is good for the business, and the more freedom you give me, the better the quality of the final product. And my, and my best clients were the same people who were just, but it depends because like one of my favorite clients was this Mexican business owner, the one I did with the Huichol people, with the reindeer, with the deer. I mean, he was him and his family were amazing. Like they were just so excited because well, they come from an area in Nayarit where everybody's very artistic and they paint everything, like including the trees and the rocks. So like in the floor, everything's painted. So they came in understanding what art is already, and they just gave me so much freedom, and they were super supportive. And that's the yeah. So yeah, I guess if something I could suggest is like if the more freedom you are able to give an artist, the better the the final product will be, because then it's something interesting. Like I feel like in a lot of times um art looks very similar to a lot of other art pieces because they have the same people deciding what goes into their city, which is understandable. But it's just like, if you want to make things interesting, if you want to try like be different, then you have to let artists be artists. Most artists understand that, like a specific, like me, for example, I understand that I'm not gonna make a strong statement within public art piece. It's not what you do because it's for the public, most of my, obviously my darkest, more, controversial pieces are my personal work, so I save that for my work. And when it comes to like the public, I want something that will make people happy, and I think that's where it really hits is like I want people to have a smile on their face when they walk through a space and not be like puzzled or angry or something, I mean, I think with representation comes anger from certain group of people because my work has been vandalized. At least 3 of my murals have been vandalized, and 2 of them were for they just weren't happy that I was representing people of color. That was as simple as that. I mean, the one with the butterfly, the kids was vandalized. First, they came in, vandalized a black child, and then they came back and they hired someone from the street to like help them paint over the other faces. Clearly, I mean, they didn't like the diversity it was representing, and that person that we know in the community is known for saying racial slurs at people. So, basically, we knew it was, had to do with racism, unfortunately. But the community came together, and that's what the most important part of it about it is that within 24 hours, the community wanted to fix it. I think that's the real story. We're not gonna let one person, right, ruin it for the
I love
rest of
that.
us. I think that's where it mattered because I had like a couple of news reach out to me for that story, and it twisted my words. They edited it in a way where it made it seem like I can't believe this happened. That's not what I said. I literally, I think the title was like "Artist is Baffled." I'm like, that doesn't even sound how I speak. I'm baffled with what happened. Like I didn't even say it like that. I literally said, I said I'm surprised it took this long. That's what I'm
Good for
surprised
you.
it took this
Yeah,
long.
boy, that's a
Yeah.
big twist on your.
Yeah,
words,
yeah,
so,
yeah. Because I'm like,
yeah.
no, this happens all the time. That's what I said in the interview. I told them it's happened to so many other artists. I'm just very fortunate that people care enough about my stuff that it gets on the news. That's what I said. But I'm like, and I told them the real important part is that people cared so much that we got enough funding to fix it within 24 hours. That's like, for me, that's the real story. But it
That would have
wasn't
been a good title.
right. But it wasn't
Artist.
enraging. It wasn't enough rage bait, I think, for them.
Yeah.
Thankfully that's died down a little bit, at least locally. So when I did an interview with King Five again, I told them what happened last time they interviewed me. So they took that into account, and they were a lot. They didn't twist my, like, we promise we won't twist your word. That's right, because it's a different interviewer. It was about AI. So what it does to the arts and all that. And
Yeah,
for
how
me,
much time do we have? Because that's a whole nother topic. I mean,
I know.
I would love to hear but
any other questions? Happy to answer.
I have more, but
The one with the lady that looked Asian, that was early on in your presentation. Do you sell prints of that?
Which one?
It was early, she was, the 2 gentlemen or 2 people are facing backward. And she's in the forefront holding a child.
oh,
The one
down,
with the time.
down.
This one?
Yeah,
That one.
Oh yeah. That's actually, I mean, some of these people are real people, by the way. So that person right there, she was actually at the show. She was of indigenous descent and Mexican descent, you know.
She is.
Yeah. So
Of Indian or?
indigenous Mexican descent. Yeah.
Indigenous
Yeah.
Mexican, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of our indigenous people's faces, you know,
Yeah.
they have the
I can
eyes.
tell by the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, of course I saw. Yeah, definitely.
Thinking Durango, but-
Yeah.
You go to the website to get your prints? How would people buy your?
Oh, you can go pericotheartist.com.
Okay.
It's really.
And I
if
put
you-
it in the Arts Commission email.
And if you go on even if you go on like, if it's easier for you to go on like Instagram, you can just click on the link and it takes you there. And but I don't really, I'm sold out of the limited edition prints, which are like the larger ones, but I do take like, if you would want one, then I could also do that for you. Like, which are like,
Smaller.
but the smaller ones are 11 by 17. I can do
Okay.
big ones that are 24 by 36.
11 by 17.
Yeah.
I have a question, which is, when you do a commission, like our last mural that we did, she gave us 3 options, a really conservative one,
Mhm.
like mock-ups, a conservative
Yeah.
one, kind of a medium, middle of the road one, and then kind of your wildest dreams one.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had to look and go, okay, which one do we want to go with?
Right.
Is that how you approach it? And tell us about your approach.
No, I usually show you one and then we can talk about that. Because
This is the
well,
one.
yeah. Well, because I feel like when you, at least in my experience, and this is what my mentors taught me, is that you're doing more work and then you're giving them way too much, because even for you guys it's also counterproductive, because you know, you're hiring a professional to do it, and if you're giving these many options, it makes it more difficult for you guys to also come to a decision. And it's easier for the artist that is the expert saying, I feel like this would work, but you can also put in your input, like, which is how I've worked, you know, like I do like a quick outline. I submit like you know, color schemes that I might use from other work that I've done, because I don't like to even color it or anything, because my color scheme may change throughout the process. I like to be very like you know, like fluid with how I create my things, you know, because sometimes I'm painting something and I just like, I realize that this color is not gonna look as good as I thought, and I don't want to go through all these people just to change the color, you know, because I know that I'm right, you know, because that's what you're hiring me to do. But it is important that we have at least a concept down together, you know, because it is at the end of the day a team effort here. But it is for the artist to understand that you're, again, making something that is for the public, not for your ego, you know, and it's up to us to discuss what part of that concept you want to add to, you want to change it. Obviously we can agree or disagree, but the point is we come together and make something work, you know. That's at least how I work.
And what information do you need to start your work, or do you need any information other than the location?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have like a concept, I would like to know. Like some people like the Mopop, it's on their playground, so they said that it wanted to be related to children. No, and like that's the theme. Yeah, the theme. I meant theme, not concept. A theme, yeah. If you have a theme, then yes, then it makes it. I'm like, I want to stick to that theme. So people give me complete, like Seattle Center gave me complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. So I'm gonna do something related to focus, you know. And they're like, if you want it, even that came from both of us though. They said, if you want to even make a subject that can be a little controversial, go for it. You know, they are motivated us to do something, whatever we wanted, which is, so I'm gonna do something that obviously is like, it will be a piece called What the Fuck Just Happened. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. It's called What the F Just Happened, which is like the lingering feeling of what happened after the whole COVID thing, you know, because we're still clearly dealing with the after effects of it, even in the and economically as well, right? So that's kind of like, it's me like painting a doctor that's been suffocated from all this trash. You know, and it'll be like, you know, like voting ballots that are torn up and toilet paper and masks, you know, and all this other stuff, you know. So that, but that's, again, that's an agreement that we had and they approved. But like for Mopop, like their playground is said kids at play. That's the theme. So I painted kids, but in my style, you know, like running around with butterflies because that's the theme and it matches, you know, and it's friendly, it's for kids, you know. It's for families to feel like you know, it's not like this. I'm not gonna paint something political for the playground, you know.
Yeah.
But again, that's has to do you have, I guess, for you guys, it's like you have to understand that you have the power, but you also want to trust the artist. If you're hiring an artist and you look at their work and you like their work, then that means that you already picked them for that specific reason, right? Like I had people try to change my style, you know, like, and I'm like,
Yeah,
you know, you hired me because you liked my work, you know, and yeah, like I have people try to make me paint only like animals. I'm like, how often do you see me really paint on animals? Like I think I had someone tell me they want me. I know you know the classic painting of dogs playing checkers. They want me to do something like that with different animals, and I'm like, where is that my style? You know, like
Where have you seen
yeah,
that?
yeah. Where have you know you knew not seen my work? Like you know, like it completely goes against you know it's not my thing. And I'm like, it's cute. I told him, but always recommend go with someone who paints animals a lot. You know, cute little quirky paintings. You know, which I love personally, but it's not what I do. You know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you guys are gonna hire someone, like say for a playground, you want to hire someone that you think will fit, that will like cooperate and will fit that space. You know, that's also on you. You know, but once you hire the artist, then you I think have to trust that they'll uh cooperate with you and do something that is gonna work with the space. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I think that's really important because you have to give freedom,
Right, right.
because you guys know.
Right. I mean, I try to tell people like this is one, you know, like you hire someone to do your plumbing, you're not gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe not this pipe. Like you know, like you hired them for a reason, you know. So
Right.
trust that they know what they're doing, and if you don't trust them, then don't hire them. You know, that's why you look through people's
Oh, yeah.
portfolios, yes, because you're the one picking them. If you don't feel like they can do the job, then don't hire them. You know, if it's I've been on boards myself, and I mean I was also on the Venture Parks Foundation board. I've served. I've been a community organizer, and I've also done panels where we select artists. So what I learned when you especially when you give big budgets, right, is that I remember there was one where we decided to give the underdog a chance, but because we trusted that even though they've never handled a budget this large, that their vision was gonna it made sense with the community, you know, that we felt like so the other person who was clearly qualified, they were a little too busy and we're like, okay, so we want someone give someone a chance because you know that this will be their main focus because they've never had this kind of budget before. Or do you want to get someone who's just going to be like another thing on my checklist? You know, that's up to you. You're like the other one's the safety one because you know they'll do a good job, but like will they really take the time to get to know the community? What's more important to you, you know? And for us, we decided it was more important that the community had a say in the piece. So we needed someone who had more time. So we hired the person who, even though they've never had a budget this large, we knew that they would spend more time with the community and make something work. And that's your job, you know. But once you, like I said, once you hire the artist, then you know you have to trust that they.
Let them do it.
Just
Yeah, I
brave,
get it.
brave enough to let go.
You know, I think what's tricky is I know like with the city of Tacoma, our arts commissions come far enough along. They don't have to have things vetted through the city council, but for us, we're a recommending body.
Mhm.
So we have to get consensus from city council. And they kind of want to see iterations as it goes along.
Mhm.
And then, you know, we had a wonderful mural just made, but then, you know, when she came in and showed the concepts, there was a discussion about, okay, well, is that realism versus some abstract, you know,
Interpretation of something.
and
Hmm.
Yes.
you know, it gets a little tricky.
Okay, I see
Because
what you
She did a
mean.
good job blending it.
But she did. She kind
Yeah.
of she listened to everybody and blended it. But I ultimately felt like it probably wasn't her best work because she was trying to make everybody happy, right?
And I would say to that,
Not that I'm unhappy with it, but
that Sally, that there comes a point that the city council is going to have to trust this body.
Yes.
Otherwise, we will be commissioning work that is very mediocre.
Yeah, watered down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we don't want that. And the artists like Perico won't want to work with us
That's right.
Mhm.
because
I know.
it's
I know, because we talked, I'm like, this isn't gonna fly. We're not ready for this, but I love your work. I do love your.
No, I mean, I'd be down to work with you guys, even if I have to sit with whoever you have to like get. You know, that's because
Well,
but I've been there though. That's
yeah.
the thing. You know, I'm willing to sit with people and explain, and
Yeah.
that's I think one of my greatest, at least fortes, and what I do is that I come from obviously sales and
Mhm.
and
So your
management.
There is
business
an art
background
to
is
that.
helping you with
There
that,
is
yeah.
an art to that. She did a beautiful job with.
and
Got
you know, there are things about Perico's work. I mean, if you have a theme and you look at the Mopop children's piece, that's beautiful.
Mhm,
Who could have
mhm,
picked that?
mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
How
Way of
lucky would we
thematic,
be to
yes.
have your artwork?
To
our
to
community.
steer it, yeah.
Yeah, it would. And the Hispanic population is our biggest population and biggest minority population. I think 24.
But he said if he was going to do something for children in a park, that's.
There's a theme
That's what
there.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the artist
It
needs to
is.
know
It's
when to
beautiful.
put their ego
He's a
aside.
professional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like for me, it's just like again, it's not like it's not for me, it's just for the community. Once
Mhm.
it's out there, like it's like if I put something again that's kind of controversial or something, I'm putting the community out to dry. It's not fair for them to have to deal with something,
Yeah.
and so you have to understand that, what you're doing when you're doing public art, it's public, and you have to put your ego aside and understand that you have to work with others. And that's what I mean when you're hiring an artist, you have to know that are they willing to work with you? Because I know personally some artists who don't like to change much of anything, and then they ask me how you get more public work, and all this stuff. And I told them, well, if you're gonna be kind of like this, nobody's gonna want to work with you. And like for me, it's just like I mean, I think the hardest I mean, and I mean, even if it's in this is public forum,
Yeah.
I've talked to them so they know. But like when I worked with the union, they had so many different people come in, and in the end, it like you said, I did a good job technically, but it wasn't necessarily me anymore. Because they like moved around so much things, and we had a conversation about it towards the end. Thankfully, they were very understanding. That's why I can't say anything wrong about them. They understood this is the first time they've hired an artist, and they understood where they went wrong, and we decided that they would be willing to work with me again, but this time give me more freedom this time, because they realized that they're like, oh, they've seen my other work and they've seen what I can do, and they're like, I'm like, that's because they trusted me. I told them, like, I'm willing to work with you guys. At the end of the day, I tell them, you guys, this is what I said to them. At the end of the day, you're my clients, and you're the ones who are paying me like money, like enough money to like fix 2 roofs, like, so I can't like complain much about that. But at the same time, I'm like, if you want me to do good work, you have to trust me, a little bit,
People don't tie my hands.
Yeah,
with all
yeah.
this.
So
Work. You
Yeah.
can't do the work of someone else.
it's 6:15, so I want to be mindful, but we put together a public art program. And it started with most affordable art, which is the signal boxes, which have been amazing. Like I said, we did 22, we're doing 10 more. And then we're supposed to do a mural a year. But we don't have many locations for murals. We did the bathroom at Fort Silicon Park, which is amazing.
I heard about it.
Yeah. And but tell me about that. Like, I mean, we're a big city, but how do you go about finding location?
Oh, yeah, that's funny. You just if you find a good wall, call them.
Got
That's
it.
what I did. It took me
Okay.
people thought I also thought it'd be harder than that. But when I did the butterfly mural, they basically gave me the funding, and they're like, go find a wall. That was like part of the job. So like I was driving around looking for good walls, and I called a couple of people, and then the person that said yes was the wall that I wanted. And I told them, and then they have to agree, they become part of the process as well, because there was
Yeah.
a church. But it's like I said, but if you find like
Yeah.
for me, they were super nice. That person named Bishop Battle, he was like amazing person in the community. like a saint. And I'm, like, even though he knew I wasn't religious, he knew that my heart was in the right place. And I knew that we both had a thing in the middle, and we both wanted to say something about diversity in our community and wanted to honor it. And so we agreed on that. So me and the Arts Commission and Bishop Battle, all of us came together and agreed on this design. So like I said, it's very much doable. You just have to be like I said, fluid. You have to be like water, you have to like be willing to
Yeah.
go around things. And I'm like I said, most artists who want to be public artists will, like, I mean, I personally like love like, I don't like to be put in a chokehold as well, because then I'm miserable. But I also enjoy the conversation and where it leads, because sometimes the piece is actually better because of it, because now I'm confident that it speaks to the space and to the people, and I think that's the beautiful part about it.
So one last thing I really want to get in, because this has come up, is we want to honor diversity,
Mhm.
but then it's like, oh, well, here's a concept, but oh, that culture is left out and that culture is left out. And like, you can't possibly have every single culture and tribe. And
Yeah.
so how can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think something you have to understand is that you're never gonna make everybody 100% happy. It's impossible. It's like completely impossible. Someone's gonna complain about something.
So as a result, we just decided as a commission, okay, we won't do faces. But you're all faces.
I do.
That was in our last session. When remember we had the faces, and we're like, well, we just won't do faces because then we won't have that issue. That definitely came up. I don't know if you guys remember.
For me at least, so if you for me at least, I pick a concept that isn't like the butterfly mural was specifically about diversity, but I've tried to stir away from that on purpose, because I'm like, the theme has to be something that anybody, no matter where you're from, can, like, for example, I did generational trauma. Even though it has like a person of Mexican indigenous roots, I had people from like Africa come up to me and tell me about that piece. Because everybody can relate to generational trauma and like and immigration and all these things, right? So like, just like children at play, nobody's ever complained about it, because it's kids at play. Nobody's saying, why is it only Mexican kids at play? Why? Because they're just kids at play. Like, it doesn't. They're kids. And I think that's where you can use people. And I think if I paint someone that is from like my community, and the artist also is from that community, then I think people are more forgiving. Like, you hired a Mexican artist, that's why he included his community. That makes sense to me. But like I said, but the theme has to be like, I think, ambiguous enough where enough people can see themselves in it without having to only focus. If it's
Be
only
literal,
focus, exactly, because when you only focus on identity, then you're only like, if you're putting like political figures of like, like Martin Luther King and all this stuff, then you might have people like, why is it only African Americans? See what I mean? Or you're putting Cesar Chavez, like, why Cesar Chavez? Like, you polarize people, you put them and there's a time and place to do it. Like, if you're doing a community, and in the community center that's supposed to represent like people of a certain group, then go for it. But if it's like in a public park and for the city, and you want to be inclusive, then I think, like I said, if it's a park, then you're looking for a park theme, something that is community driven, like father, like this, just like on top of my head, with his children, or a mother with their child in the park, like holding a flower or something beautiful like that, right? Because then everybody, like everybody can see it,
relate
whether
to
they're
it,
even whether they're trans, even too, because like a trans person can be a motherly and fatherly figure, right? And it doesn't matter who's gonna oppose against something like that, and that's where you really, like, I think, hit the sweet spot in the community.
Remember Juan did a painting?
Yeah, he did.
And it had all these people, and we're
It was
like,
a
well, it
sketch.
doesn't have,
Yeah.
that's not what an Asian Pacific Islander looks like, and that's not, and so we just kind of walked away from that whole concept. But anyways, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
that was difficult for us as a group to get past. We couldn't.
But
Get
those
past
cases
that.
were very specific. Yours, I mean, sitting here as a white male looking at it, I just loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
you blend the face, and there were maybe several different faces, and you get this feeling, this is really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think
And
sometimes
the way you use the butterflies everywhere.
yeah, it's funny because I that started with the mural, and then I thought that that's enough of butterflies, but everybody asked for them,
Yeah.
so I keep including them. But it's like become this beautiful thing because yeah, it's about migration and everything, you know. And like for example, that mural with again the union, right, where they wanted to like force like something about immigration in there too. I'm like, you have people from different backgrounds already, like community members. That's enough. Like you're gonna add too much, you know, and that's when I started complaining to them, you know, you're doing too much, you know. Let the art speak for itself. Like there's people like you have to trust that also people will have cognitive skills to see like, okay, there's people from different backgrounds. This is that's what it is, right? And also like that you see kids in play, you're not gonna be like, why again, why only these Mexican kids, you know? But
One last question. Is $6,000 to $10,000 a reasonable thing, price point?
depends on the wall.
Uh-huh.
You know, like something like this wall is it's good for 10,000, you know. And you might even get people like, and also what else are you willing? Like if you're gonna do a wall outside that's high, but you're like, we can include a scissor lift, then you just help that artist with the budgeting. Because a lot of the budgeting goes in the scissor lifts, but the city has better ways of getting the scissor lifts than me, you know? And that's what I try at least when I'm doing my own personal like contracts, because I did learn, like I make my own contracts sometimes, because I learned that in business, right? So like I try to like, you know, it's either gonna be this much, but if you include the scissor lift, then yeah, I'll do it for this price, you know? And I've had people agree to it because they have connections with people in construction, so they're like, I can get you this for
Got it.
cheaper, you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone, I've been monopolizing the questions. Sorry, does anyone else have questions? This was so amazing.
I think you did it all.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you again for coming all the way from Normandy Park
Thank you.
to speak with us. It was incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
We learned so
like,
much.
I would love to work with you guys. So I hope
We
I
would
can
love
get
to
here.
work with you.
Yeah.
We would love to work with you.
And that budget will work for me. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need you in Lakewood.
Um,
That would be so nice, yeah.
Well, I live so close. I mean, I created a huge community, and I live like on the border of going to Lakewood, so that's why I always wanted to have something here as well. Yeah.
I need to discuss in private.
Okay.
Well, in public. I guess you can listen to the recording afterwards, but I would like to discuss a concept.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess, well, yeah, I'm gonna throw this out. So we have an MLK event.
Okay.
And the theme this year is, or for 2025 is beloved community. And it would be really neat to do, this is spontaneous me throwing it out, but a mural with that theme. And he has a speech called Beloved Community, and it's really about nonviolence, like getting your point across in a nonviolent way. But we're doing a welcome walk for our beloved community, and we're just kind of exploring that whole theme because we just love the sounds of, you know, Lakewood, our beloved community.
Yeah.
And
That's nice. See, that comes with the theme spoken, I guess, again, by somebody who is from a specific community, but the theme is universal.
right. So Thich Nhat
You got it,
Hanh, who's
yeah.
a Buddhist monk,
Yeah.
you know, he uses that. A lot of people use that now. So it's
What was it again?
our beloved community, essentially. Our beloved community is the title of one of his essays, and you could just Google that and
Yeah.
spin, and then we'll just chat on the side.
Yeah. It could even be someone handing someone plant or food or something, you know, because that's an exchange without saying words, and that's support in the community. I always thought that because of, you know, helping homeless people, you know, like
Mhm.
there's like different ways to like without it being when it comes to like money or
Mhm.
something, right? Like sometimes giving someone something they need like then and there, like I said, plants or
Mhm.
speak. I mean, plants metaphorically say a lot more things, or passing flowers to someone, you know, it's
Mhm.
without being spoken, it's
Gesture of love. too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe just read that essay, see what you think, and
Yeah.
we'll chat. Get all of our brains working together.
Yes, please do. I mean, if you have any more questions, you can just reach out to me. So
I just have one question,
Go ahead.
because you said you have had artwork get graffitied.
Yeah.
Do you apply the graffiti coating stuff on top of your work?
Yeah, I've had to learn it the hard way, but yes.
Okay.
And there's
We require that. so,
yeah,
yeah.
and there's some that I mean, some people can get more. That I mean, I usually like, if you, for example, you guys hired me, right? I'm like, you guys know, like someone who could seal it, with a better sealer than me, then I think that's better. But when people are like, we want you to do everything, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm using Vanguard, which is like the only thing I can actually get my hands on.
Mhm.
And I think like I'm applying it as best as I can. But
Mhm.
I usually recommend like hire people who do this for a living to do it, because they can seal it properly. Yeah, but I mean, I've done it plenty of times. I think at this point I become a professional
you're
at it,
really good at it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Okay, perfect, good question.
Thank you very much. You have my flash drive?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Really nice having
Yeah.
you come speak.
Just one last thing, the city
Yeah.
council, well, the city council's going to be, I'm gonna be presenting the signal box artist to them next Monday night for consensus. And then we'll be able to move forward.
Okay, sounds great.
Very high.
Okay,
Thank you, Susan, for
next Monday.
organizing.
No.
Yeah, Parika, just spin on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Our beloved community, yeah, I'll talk to you on the phone.
Oh yeah, please.